you ever had that really powerful gut feeling? That sudden knowing, or maybe just that flash of intuition, or even that weird jolt of anxiety or calm that just seems to pop out of nowhere, but it kind of guides what you do next. We often chalk it up to experience, right? Or conscious thought. And yeah, those are absolutely huge parts of it. But what if I told you there's this like incredibly sophisticated silent architect deep inside you, constantly building and refining those exact sensations and insights? That's right. Today we're doing a deep dive into the biological concept in psychology. Our mission really is to kind of pull back the curtain and understand how our physical body, especially the brain and all its connections, how it actually creates this amazing thing we call our mind and our behavior. Think of it like appreciating a really smooth running car. It's one thing to enjoy the ride, but understanding the engine, the fuel system, the electrics, how they all work together, that gives you a whole new appreciation. It's the same way with us. Grasping our biological side helps us appreciate just how complex it is to be human. Especially those moments, those seemingly spontaneous thoughts or feelings. So we're going to unpack how our brains, our nervous systems, hormones, even our genes play these huge, sometimes really surprising roles in everything, from that super fast intuition to our deepest emotions. Okay, let's unpack this. So we'll start with the big one, the undisputed maestro of the show. The brain. We call it our personal supercomputer all the time. And, well, it kind of fits, doesn't it? But it's not just processing data. It's predicting. It's creating, constantly adapting. It's like this massive pulsating city inside your head. Billions of neurons, these specialized cells, just constantly chattering, firing off signals, weaving together our consciousness. I always wonder about those instant reactions. Like you get that sudden jolt of fear from a dog barking unexpectedly. You jump back before you even really think dog or threat. It feels so primal, so immediate. What exactly is happening in our bodies in that split second? Feels like pure instinct.
That's a great point. That immediate, almost preconscious reaction, that's your brain's rapid assessment system just going into overdrive. Specifically, a little almond-shaped bit called the amygdala. It processes that sound super fast and signals danger. But it's not just the amygdala acting alone. It's this lightning-fast circuit. It involves sensory areas, maybe even some basic pathways to your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part, basically telling you, react now. You react before you've even fully processed it logically. That's often why intuition feels like a knowing that comes before you can explain why you know it.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this fast pattern recognition isn't just for threats either. Think about trying to remember where you put your keys. You're searching, and then suddenly, bang, the memory just appears.
Yes, the aha.
In moment. Exactly. That feeling seems instant.
Right.
But that's your hippocampus, working with other parts of your brain, sifting through just tons of information, looking for patterns, connecting dots, until that memory sort of crystallizes. These aren't abstract mental searches, They're actual physical processes, electrical impulses zipping between brain cells.
Wow. So the brain's the conductor, starting all these incredible processes. But how do its commands actually get to the rest of the body? How do they create those physical feelings that often come with intuition? Like, the butterflies in your stomach when you're nervous, or that tension you suddenly feel in your shoulders.
Right.
That's where the nervous system comes in. Yeah. Our body's information highway.
Precisely. It's this vast network connecting every single part of your body back to the brain. It allows for that lightning-fast communication we've been talking about.
So, like the classic example, you accidentally touch a hot stove, your hand pulls back instantly, way before you consciously think, ouch, that's hot. Does that mean the brain isn't always in charge? Or is there a mini brain in our spinal cord doing some of the work?
You're right onto something there. That's a perfect example of the nervous system's efficiency. It's called a reflex arc. It's basically a shortcut. Your peripheral nervous system, that's the nerves outside your brain, and spinal cord sends a regent message straight to your spinal cord. And the spinal cord, acting kind of like a local manager, immediately sends a command back to your muscles. Pull away. It doesn't even wait for the full message to get to the brain and back.
Wow. So it bypasses the main brain for speed.
Exactly. It's the ultimate efficiency when there's immediate danger. Keeps you safe.
Okay.
And those butterflies you mentioned earlier, that sensation in your stomach, that's often your autonomic nervous system, part of that peripheral system acting directly on your gut. It's not just a saying. Your gut actually has its own incredibly complex nervous system. Sometimes people even call it the second brain.
Seriously. The second brain.
Seriously. And what's really fascinating, and something science is digging into more and more, is the two-way street between your gut and your brain. They're constantly talking, mainly via a big nerve called the vagus nerve. This communication influences everything from your mood to, yes, those very real, visceral, intuitive feelings. So when you talk about a gut feeling, well, you might be more biologically accurate than you even realize.
That is incredible, the gut-brain connection.
Yeah.
Definitely not something most people think about daily.
Okay, so we've got the brain, the super fast nervous system, but what about communication that's maybe less like an instant text message and more like a company-wide memo, something slower, more widespread that shapes our mood or readiness over time?
Yeah, good analogy.
That sounds like hormones, right? The body's chemical messengers. Exactly. Hormones are produced by various glands, travel through your bloodstream, and they influence just about everything: mood, growth, metabolism, stress responses, you name it.
Okay, so think about that rush, that surge of energy and excitement you get right before a big presentation or maybe before playing a sport. You feel physically kind of buzzed, full of anticipation. What's driving that physical feeling?
That's very often adrenaline. The technical name is epinephrine kicking in. It's released by your adrenal glands right on top of your kidneys. It's a key part of preparing your body for action. Gets your heart rate up, opens your airways, pumps energy to your muscles. The classic fight or flight hormone, though it does more than that.
Right.
And there are others, of course. Cortisol is another stress hormone. It helps in short bursts, but if you have high levels for a long time, it can actually mess with your thinking, maybe even make it harder to trust those intuitive nudges.
Interesting. So stress can literally cloud our judgment biologically.
It can, yeah. And then you have hormones like melatonin. It doesn't give you that buzz like adrenaline. Instead, it helps manage your sleep-wake cycle. When it gets dark outside, your body naturally ramps up melatonin production, making you feel sleepy.
Ah, okay.
So you know that groggy feeling you have after a really bad night's sleep? Your melatonin levels might be all out of whack. It's like your body didn't get the time to be awake and alert memo properly. And that directly impacts how clearly you think the next day, which of course affects how well you pick up on subtle cues or process those intuitive feelings.
Makes total sense. Sleep is crucial.
Yeah.
Okay, so brain, nervous system, hormones, they're all orchestrating our daily experience, influencing reflexes, gut feelings, energy levels, sleep. But what about the underlying plan, the blueprint, the code that might subtly shape our tendencies towards certain feelings or even certain types of intuition? That's genetics, isn't it?
Exactly. Genetics adds another layer of complexity and individuality to the whole picture.
We see it, obviously, right? You inherit curly hair from your mom.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a knack for math like your dad. That's easy to grasp. But how does that same genetic inheritance quietly influence something as complex as our psychology, our personality, maybe even how intuitive we tend to be?
Yeah, it's definitely more subtle than eye color, but it's absolutely there. Genetics plays this really profound role. For instance, some people might inherit genes that make them more inclined towards, say, novelty seeking, or maybe the opposite, more risk averse. And you can see how that might shape how readily someone trusts a sudden intuitive feeling versus needing lots of hard data first, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or someone might have a genetic predisposition towards higher emotional sensitivity. They might just naturally pick up on subtle social cues or environmental vibes more easily, which you could argue is a form of intuition. Their processing style is just different, based partly on their genes.
So it's not like there's one intuition gene.
Oh, definitely not. It's way more complex. This is where that classic nature versus nurture debate really comes alive, but it's not really. Versus it's an interaction. Genes don't dictate your destiny, not at all. But they might lay down a sort of foundational framework, like a genetic tendency towards anxiety might make one person hyper-aware of potential threats, a kind of negative intuition, maybe?
Okay.
But whether that becomes a useful vigilance or a debilitating anxiety disorder depends hugely on their environment, their experiences, their coping mechanisms, the nurture part. So it's less about specific genes for things like intuition and more about how slight variations in many genes influence the overall architecture of our brain, our nervous system, our hormone responses, creating these unique individual tendencies.
Wow, okay. It's really us all interconnected. So
Yeah.
Bringing this all together then, what does this all mean for us, for you listening right now? Why does understanding this biological perspective actually matter in our day-to-day lives? How does it change how we see ourselves?
Well, I think it offers some really profound insights. One of the most critical for me is how it helps destigmatize mental health challenges.
How so?
When we recognize that conditions like, say, depression or anxiety aren't just in your head in some vague way, but often involve actual measurable things like imbalances in brain chemicals, neurotransmitters, or maybe differences in how certain brain networks function, or even those genetic predispositions we talked about.
Mm.
It helps shift the perspective. We can start to see them less as, I don't know, character flaws or
Uh-huh.
weaknesses, and more as medical conditions. Conditions that can be understood, treated, managed, just like you'd treat diabetes or heart disease.
That's a really important shift.
It is. And this deeper understanding, which comes from neuroscience, from genetics research, from brain imaging, it's been absolutely fundamental in developing more effective treatments, whether that's medication or targeted therapies. Knowing the biology helps us find better solutions.
Right. And beyond mental health,
Mm.
what about just personal growth, day-to-day living,
Yeah.
knowing how your body actually works,
Yeah.
understanding these biological levers? Surely that can help you make better choices for yourself.
Absolutely. It empowers you, really. For example, understanding how something like regular exercise doesn't just benefit your body, but actually boosts mood-regulating neurotransmitters in your brain,
Uh,
or how mindfulness practice isn't just relaxing, but can physically reshape neural pathways associated with stress and
Yeah,
focus.
yeah.
Knowing the why makes it more compelling. It's not just get enough sleep because it's good for you. It's understanding that during sleep, your brain is literally clearing out metabolic waste products that build up during the day. That cleaning process optimizes your brain function for the next day,
Mm.
enhancing clarity, focus, and yeah, probably your intuitive sharpness too. So
Mhm.
understanding the biology motivates healthier habits.
It really puts the power back in your hands, in a way.
Ex-
Ultimately, looking at ourselves through this biological lens, it just highlights the incredible complexity, the wonder of the human organism, doesn't it?
Mm.
We're like this machine, but vastly more sophisticated, more dynamic, more self-regulating than anything humans have ever built. It really shows that our subjective experience, our thoughts, our feelings, those gut reactions, they aren't just floating around in abstraction. They're profoundly tied to the physical reality of our bodies. So as we wrap up this deep dive, the core takeaway really is just this. Our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, from that instant recoil from heat to that complex, nuanced gut feeling, they aren't just abstract experiences. They're deeply, deeply rooted in the physical reality of our brains, our nervous systems, our hormones, and our genes.
Mhm. And by kind of peeking behind that curtain, by understanding these biological players, even just a little bit better, we gain a much richer, more complete picture, a more, frankly, awe-inspiring picture of what it actually means to be human.
So here's something to think about. How might recognizing these biological foundations change how you view your own spontaneous reactions? Or your moods day to day? Or even those intuitive hits, those gut feelings you've maybe always just taken for granted? Maybe just keep observing that fascinating dance, that interplay between your biology and your daily experience. It's quite a show.